The rain was coming down like bullets on the streets of Lekki that Tuesday evening. I'm talking about the kind of rain that makes you run for cover, the kind that soaks you through in seconds. But there he was, a boy, maybe 14 years old, standing right there in the middle of the downpour with two tiny babies pressed against his chest. I was sitting in the back of my Mercedes, stuck in Lagos traffic as usual, when I saw him through the tinted window. Kemi, his name was, though I didn't know it then. What I saw was this skinny kid, soaked to the bone, trying to shield two infants with nothing but his own body. The babies were blue, shivering, and one of them wasn't even crying anymore. You know that feeling when your heart just stops? When everything around you goes quiet even though the world is loud as hell? That's what happened to me, right there on Admiralty Way. "Driver, stop the car," I said to Emeka, my usual guy. "Madam Aduni, we go late for the meeting." "Stop the damn car." I threw open the door before we even came to a complete stop. The rain hit me like a slap, but I didn't care. My Hermes dress was ruined in seconds, my makeup running down my face, but all I could see was this boy and those babies. Hey you!" I called out, running toward him. Kemi looked up at me with eyes that had seen too much. 14 years old, but carrying the weight of the world. He was clutching those babies so tight, like they were the only thing keeping him alive. "Please, madam," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "My brothers. They need help. They're so cold." Brothers, that's what he called them. The twins couldn't have been more than 8 months old, and they were dying right there in front of me. One of them had stopped breathing properly. His little chest was barely moving. I didn't think. I just acted. "Get in the car, now." Kemi hesitated for a second, probably thinking I was another crazy Lagos madam. But when he looked down at those babies, something in his face changed. Desperation, maybe. Or just the knowledge that he was out of options. Emeka General Hospital, fast. The drive to the hospital felt like forever, but it was probably only 10 minutes. Kemi sat in the back with me, still protecting those babies with his body. He was shaking, whether from cold or fear, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. "What happened to them?" I asked. "Our mama. She died when they were born. We've been on the street for 3 days now. Nobody help us. Nobody care." His English was broken, but his pain was crystal clear. I've been rich for a long time now. Made my first million in real estate when I was 25. Built an empire after that. But sitting in that car, looking at this boy and those dying babies, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. We burst through the emergency room doors of Lagos General like we owned the place, which, considering the amount of money I'd donated over the years, wasn't far from the truth. But money doesn't always buy you urgency in Nigerian hospitals. "These babies need help now," I told the nurse at reception. She looked at Kemi, looked at the babies, then looked at me. I could see her doing the calculation. Street kid with sick babies equals problems she didn't want to deal with. "Do you have deposit?" she asked in that tired voice hospital workers use when they've seen too much. "How much?" 500,000 naira. Without blinking, I pulled out my checkbook. The nurse's eyes went wide. Behind her, a doctor finally appeared. Dr. Adebayo, a man I'd met at several charity functions. "Mrs. Olarensogo, what brings you here?" "These babies are dying. Help them." He looked at the twins, and his entire demeanor changed. Professional mode kicked in. "Get them to emergency care now," he barked to the nurses. "Full respiratory support." They disappeared through the double doors, taking the babies with them. Kemi tried to follow, but a nurse held him back. "You wait here," she said. For the first time since I'd seen him on the street, Kemi broke down. This tough kid who'd been protecting two babies in a thunderstorm just collapsed into a chair and cried like the child he really was. I sat down next to him. "What's your name?" "Kemi." "Kemi what?" He wiped his nose with the back of his hand. "Just Kemi. I no get family name no more." That hit me harder than it should have. Here was a kid who'd lost everything, including his own identity. But he'd never let go of those babies. "The twins," I said. "What are their names?" "Taiwo and Kehinde. Taiwo come first, but Kehinda's supposed to be the elder one. That's what our mama tell me before she die." Dr. Adebayo came out 2 hours later. 2 hours of sitting in plastic chairs, drinking terrible hospital coffee, and watching Kemi stare at the emergency room doors like he could will those babies back to health. "They're stable," the doctor said. Severe pneumonia, dehydration, malnutrition, but they'll live. Kemi's whole body sagged with relief. They'll need to stay here for at least a week, Dr. Adebayo continued. Maybe longer, full treatment, medication, monitoring. I already knew what he was going to say next. The cost will be substantial. Bill me, I said, whatever it takes. That night, I took Kemi home with me. Not to my main house, that would have been too much, too fast. But I had a guest house on the compound, small but comfortable. Clean beds, hot water, food in the fridge. You can stay here while your brothers recover, I told him. He stood in the doorway like he was afraid to step inside. Why are you helping us? It was a fair question. Why was I helping? I had board meetings to attend, investments to manage, a life that didn't include random street kids and sick babies. I don't know, I said, and that was the truth. But as I watched Kemi finally walk into that guest house, finally allowing himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, things might be okay, I realized something had changed in me that day. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. What I didn't know was that by the end of the week, everything I thought I understood about Kemi and those babies would be turned completely upside down. The first 3 days were peaceful, too peaceful, if I'm being honest. Kemi would wake up at dawn, eat breakfast like he was afraid the food might disappear, then spend the entire day at the hospital with the twins. I gave Amika standing orders to drive him back and forth. No questions asked. The babies were getting stronger. Taiwo had started crying again, which Dr. Adebayo said was a good sign. Kehinde was still weak, but his breathing had improved. Kemi would sit between their beds for hours, talking to them in Yoruba, telling them stories I couldn't understand. What do you tell them? I asked him on Wednesday evening as we drove back to the house. I tell them about Mama, about how she sing to them before they born, about how she say they gonna be strong boys, gonna make something of themselves. His eyes were distant, lost in memories that probably hurt more than they comforted. She must have been a good mother. Best mama in the world. She no deserve what happened to her. I was about to ask what he meant when my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Olaran Sogo? The voice was rough, older, male. Who is this? My name is Tunda. I hear you've been taking care of my boys. The temperature in the car seemed to drop 10 degrees. Kemi went rigid beside me, his face draining of all color. Your boys? Taiwo and Kehinde, they my sons, and Kemi there. He no supposed to take them nowhere without my permission. I looked at Kemi, who was shaking his head frantically, making cutting motions across his throat. Where have you been? I asked. These children were dying in the rain. Tunda laughed, but there was nothing funny about the sound. I've been handling business, but now I'm back and I want my children. If they're your children, why didn't you... The line went dead. That Kemi, I said slowly. Who is Tunda? The boy looked like he was about to be sick. He's supposed to be their papa. But madam, please don't give them to him. Please. Why not? If he's their father... He no father, Kemi exploded. He evil man. He the one who make mama die. Before I could ask what he meant, Amika was pulling into my compound. But something was wrong. My security guard, Chidi, came running toward the car before we'd even stopped. Madam, we get problem, he said. 3 men come here 1 hour ago. They say they looking for the small boy. I tell them nobody here, but they no believe me. My blood went cold. What kind of men? Area boys. They carry weapon. I looked around my compound. 10-foot walls, electric fence, security cameras everywhere. It should have been safe. But looking at Kemi's terrified face, I realized safe was relative. We need to get to the hospital, I said. Now. The drive to Lagos General felt different this time. Every car that got too close, every motorcycle that passed us, made me nervous. Kemi sat in the corner, making himself as small as possible. Tell me about Tunda, I said. He no good man, madam. He hurt mama. He hurt plenty women. When mama pregnant, he disappear. Only come back after baby's born, but mama already dying. Dying how? Kemi's voice dropped to a whisper. She no die from childbirth like I tell you. She die because somebody poison her. Same day Tunde come back. Jesus Christ. We got to the hospital just as visiting hours were ending. The twins were sleeping, looking so small in those big hospital beds. But they were alive. and that's what mattered. We can't stay here long, I told Kemi, but I need to know, are you really their brother? He was quiet for a long moment. Not brother like you think. Mama, she take me in when I was small. My real mama die when I 8 years old. Miss Foleka, she find me on the street, give me home. She say family not about blood, it about love. So that was it. Kemi wasn't their biological brother, but he was their family in every way that mattered, which meant legally I had no idea where any of us stood. Kemi, if Tunde is really their father... He not father! The boy's voice was fierce. Father protect his children. Father don't sell his children. Sell them? Before Kemi could answer, my phone rang again. Tunde. Mrs. Rich Lady, he said, his voice mocking. You still there? What do you want? I want my boys back, and I want compensation for all the trouble you caused me. Trouble I caused you? You take my children without permission. That's kidnapping. But I'm reasonable, man. You give me 2 million naira, and we forget this whole thing. 2 million naira, about $4,000. Nothing to me, but clearly everything to him. And if I don't? Then I come collect my boys myself, tonight, with my friends. The line went dead again. I looked at Kemi, who had heard enough of the conversation to understand what was happening. His face was a mixture of rage and terror. He gonna sell them, Kemi said quietly. That's what he do. He find women, get them pregnant, then take the babies and sell them to rich people who can't have children. Or worse. Worse? People who want children for bad things. People who... He couldn't finish the sentence. My hands were shaking as I called my lawyer, Obinna Okesh. We'd done business together for years. Real estate deals, contracts, corporate law. Surely he could help with this. Obinna, I need your help. Emergency custody situation. Aduni, what's going on? I explained the situation as quickly as I could. 3 babies, questionable paternity, threats of violence, possible child trafficking. This is complicated, he said after I finished. Without proper documentation, without the mother present, without... The mother is dead. Even more complicated. Look, come to my office tomorrow morning. We'll file for emergency custody, get a court order. But these things take time. I don't have time. This man is coming tonight. Then call the police. I almost laughed. Lagos police and a child custody dispute involving a dead mother, a missing father, and a rich woman who might look like she was trying to buy children? That was going to end badly for everyone. I'll figure something out, I said. But as we sat there in that hospital room, watching 2 innocent babies sleep while their brother worried himself sick, I realized I had no idea what I was going to do. Outside, the sun was setting over Lagos, and somewhere in this city, dangerous men were planning to take these children away from the only family they had left. The only question was whether I was going to let that happen. That night, I made a decision that would haunt me for weeks. I hired private security. Not just any security, but the kind of men who ask questions later. Ex-military guys who worked for oil companies and politicians. The kind who understand that sometimes the law and justice aren't the same thing. I need protection for 3 children, I told Commander Bello, the head of the security firm. The threat is immediate and credible. He didn't ask for details. That's what I was paying him for. But I should have known that men like Tundi don't make threats they can't back up. The next morning, everything went to hell. I was in Obinna's office filling out emergency custody paperwork when Emeka called. His voice was shaking. Madam, they take the boy. They take Kemi. My blood turned to ice. What do you mean they took him? I have 4 men come to the hospital. They say they police. They show badge. They take Kemi away. But, madam, I no think they real police. I dropped the phone and ran out of Obinna's office without a word. The drive to the hospital was a blur of Lagos traffic and pure panic. When I got there, Dr. Adebayo was waiting for me, his face grim. They had paperwork, he said. Official-looking documents saying the boy was a runaway, that he'd kidnapped the babies. What could I do? Where are Taiwo and Kehinda? Safe, for now. But Mrs. Olorensogo, those men, they're coming back for the twins. I called Commander Bello immediately. I need your best men at Lagos General, now. How many are we talking about? I don't know, but they have my boy. My boy? When had I started thinking of Kemi as mine? The twins were in the pediatric ICU, looking so small and vulnerable. Taiwo was awake, his big brown eyes following the nurses as they moved around the room. Kehinda was sleeping, but his color was better. They were getting stronger every day. They were also completely defenseless. "I want to move them," I told Dr. Adebayo. "Move them where? They're not ready to be discharged." "Private clinic, somewhere secure." "Aduni, these babies need specialized care, and moving them now could set back their recovery by weeks." I was trapped. Keep them here, and Tunda's men would take them. Move them, and I might kill them myself. That's when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but somehow I knew who it was. "You ready to make deal now?" Tunda's voice was smug. "Where is Kemi?" "The boy's safe, for now, but he gonna stay safe only if you be reasonable." "What do you want?" "I already tell you, 2 million naira and my boy's back." "How do I know you won't hurt Kimi?" Tunda laughed. "You don't. But let me explain something to you, rich lady. You think your money make you powerful? You think your security guard's gonna protect you? I've been doing this long time. I know how to handle people like you. People like me? Rich people who think they can save the world. You're not the first to try to take my business away from me. You won't be the last." The line went dead. I sat in that hospital corridor, surrounded by the sounds of machines keeping sick children alive, and realized I was in over my head. This wasn't just about 3 children anymore. This was about a network of people who made money off human suffering, and I'd stumbled right into the middle of it. But then I thought about Kemi, somewhere in this city, probably scared out of his mind. I thought about Taiwo and Kehinda, who deserved a chance at life that didn't involve being sold to the highest bidder. And I got angry. Real angry. "Dr. Adebayo," I said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course." "How often do children disappear from this hospital?" His face changed. The professional mask slipped, and for a moment, I saw something that looked like shame. "More often than we report," he said quietly. "And you never do anything about it?" "What can we do? The police are involved. The social services are involved. Sometimes the children's own families are involved. We're doctors, not detectives." "But you know it's happening." He nodded. "We know." That's when I realized that this went deeper than just Tundi and his crew. This was systematic, organized, protected, which meant I couldn't trust anyone in the official system. My phone buzzed, a text message from an unknown number, but with a photo that made my heart stop. It was Kemi. He was tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse, his face bruised, his eyes full of fear. But he was alive. The message was simple. "You have 24 hours. Bring the money and the babies to the address I will send. Come alone, no police, no security, or the boy dies." I stared at that photo for a long time. This 14-year-old kid who'd risked his life to save 2 babies, who'd called me madam, like I was someone worth respecting, who'd cried when he thought no one was looking. He was depending on me. But as I sat there in that hospital, surrounded by the beeping of machines and the whispered conversations of worried families, I realized something that should have terrified me, but somehow didn't. I wasn't going to pay the ransom. I wasn't going to hand over those babies. And I wasn't going to let Kemi die. Which meant I was going to have to do something that went against every instinct I had as a law-abiding, respectable businesswoman. I was going to have to fight dirty. The first person I called wasn't Commander Bello or my lawyer or even the police. I called Ngozi, my housekeeper of 15 years, the woman who knew every corner of my life, who'd worked for me since before I made my fortune, who cleaned my house and organized my closets and somehow always knew when I needed tea without asking. "Ngozi, I need to ask you something personal." "Yes, madam?" "Before you came to work for me, what did you do?" There was a long pause. "Why are you asking, madam?" "Because I'm in trouble, and I think you might be the only person who can help me." Another pause. Then, "I was police detective, 20 years, Lagos State Police Force." My heart nearly stopped. 15 years this woman had been in my house, and I never knew. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "You never ask, and some things better left in the past." "Ngozi, I need your help, real help." "I'd be there in 1 hour." When Ngozi arrived at the hospital, she wasn't the quiet housekeeper I knew. She moved differently, looked at everything with sharp eyes, asked questions that cut straight to the heart of things. "Show me the photo," she said. I handed her my phone. She studied Kemi's picture for a long time, zooming in on details I hadn't even noticed. "I know this place," she said finally. "Warehouse district in Apapa. Used to do raids there when I was on the force." "Can you get him out?" She gave me a look I'd never seen before. "Madam, you asking me to do something that could get us both killed." "I know. This Tunda, he not working alone. This kind of operation, it need protection. Police protection, government protection, maybe even military protection." "I don't care." Ngozi studied my face for a moment. "You sure about this? Once we start, no going back." "I'm sure." What I didn't expect was what she told me next. The dead woman, the twins' mother, what was her name? Folake. Ngozi went very still. "Folake what?" I don't know her last name. "Why?" "What she looked like?" I tried to remember what Kemi had told me. "Young, beautiful, kind eyes," he said. Ngozi pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. A young woman, maybe 25, with the same eyes as the twins, the same gentle face. "This her?" I think so. How do you have her picture?" Ngozi's voice was barely a whisper. "Because she was my daughter." The world stopped. "Your daughter?" "Yamisi. Her real name was Yamisi. She was taken when she was 10 years old. I've been looking for her for 15 years. 15 years. The same 15 years Ngozi had been working for me. She was trafficked? Had stolen from schoolyard. I was detective then, working on child trafficking cases. I think that's why they take her, to punish me, to make me stop investigating." "And you never found her?" "I find traces, rumors, stories about girl who escaped from trafficking ring, who have new name, new life, but every time I get close," she shrugged, "they move her again." I felt like I was drowning. "So Taiwo and Kahinda are my grandsons, and Kemi, that boy who protect them, he been taking care of my daughter's children." The pieces were falling into place, but they were creating a picture I didn't want to see. "Ngozi, why didn't you tell me when I brought Kemi home?" "Because I wasn't sure. Because I've been hurt too many times before. Because," her voice broke, "because I afraid to hope." I sat down hard in one of those uncomfortable hospital chairs. "What do we do now?" "Now we get my grandson back, and we make sure these babies never have to run again." Ngozi made some phone calls, not to police. She didn't trust them anymore, not to government officials. They were probably part of the problem. She called people from her old life, people who owed her favors, people who understood that sometimes justice had to happen outside the law. 2 hours, she said when she was done. "We go in 2 hours." "Go where?" "To get Kemi and to end this." "Ngozi, I can't ask you to—" "You not asking. I'm telling. These are my people, my blood. And I've been waiting 15 years for this chance." Dr. Adebayo agreed to keep the twins under extra security. Commander Bello's men would stay at the hospital, just in case. But the real rescue, that was going to be just me and Ngozi. And maybe a few of her old friends. "One thing you need to understand," Ngozi said as we prepared to leave. "When we do this, we cross a line. After tonight, everything change." "Change how?" "You become part of this war. Tunda, his bosses, his network, they not gonna forget. They not gonna forgive." I thought about that for a moment. My comfortable life, my business empire, my reputation, all of it could disappear if this went wrong. But then I thought about Kemi tied to that chair, scared and alone. I thought about 2 babies who deserved better than being sold to the highest bidder. And I thought about Ngozi, who'd spent 15 years not knowing whether her daughter was alive or dead. "Let's go get our boy," I said. As we walked out of that hospital, I realized something had fundamentally changed in me. I wasn't just a Duni Olorun Sogo, successful businesswoman anymore. I was someone's last hope. And I was about to find out exactly what that meant. The warehouse district of Apapa at night is no place for a woman in a designer dress. But as Ngozi led me through the dark streets, moving like she knew every shadow, every corner, every danger, I realized that maybe the dress didn't matter. Maybe what mattered was being exactly where I needed to be, even if it was the most dangerous place in Lagos. Ngozi's old friends turned out to be 3 men who looked like they'd seen every kind of trouble Lagos could offer. Sergeant Damalola, built like a truck, and moving with the quiet confidence of someone who'd been in real fights. Corporal Femi, thin and wiry, with scars on his hands that told stories I didn't want to hear. And Inspector Adamu, older, calmer, with eyes that missed nothing. All three were retired police. All three had worked trafficking cases with Ngozi, and all three had daughters of their own. "The warehouse is here," Ngozi said, pointing to a spot on a hand-drawn map. "Two entrances. Front door is watched. Back door leads to the loading dock." "How many men inside?" I asked. "At least 4, maybe more. Tunde don't take chances." Sergeant Damilola checked his weapon. "Not police issue, something heavier. We go in quiet, get the boy, get out." "What about Tunde?" The 3 men exchanged looks. "Tunde is why we here," Inspector Adamu said quietly. "That man been selling children for 10 years. Police know, government know. Nobody do nothing because he pay the right people." "Tonight that ends," Ngozi said. I should have been terrified. I should have been thinking about my reputation, my business, my comfortable life. Instead, all I could think about was Kemi's face in that photo. We moved through the warehouse district like ghosts. Ngozi had traded her housekeeping uniform for dark clothes that made her blend into the shadows. The men moved with practiced silence, communicating with hand signals that spoke of years working together. The warehouse looked abandoned from the outside. Broken windows, rusted metal siding, weeds growing through cracks in the concrete, but there was light coming from somewhere inside, and cars parked in places where cars shouldn't be. "2 guards at the front," Corporal Femi whispered, coming back from reconnaissance. "One at the back, but there's something else." "What?" "Screaming, children screaming." My blood went cold. "How many children?" "Don't know, but this bigger than just your boy." Ngozi's face went hard. "We go now." What happened next felt like a nightmare and a dream at the same time. Sergeant Damilola took out the back guard so quietly the man didn't even have time to shout. We slipped through the loading dock entrance into a maze of corridors and storage rooms. The screaming was louder inside, not just Kemi, other voices, younger voices. "Jesus," I whispered. "Stay close," Ngozi said. "Don't look at everything you see. Just focus on getting out alive." But I couldn't help looking. Because what I saw in that warehouse wasn't just a kidnapping operation. It was a factory, children in cages, adults in white coats doing things I didn't want to understand, medical equipment that looked expensive and terrifying. "Organ harvesting," Inspector Adamu said grimly. "We too late for some of these children." That's when I understood what Tunde really was, not just a kidnapper or a trafficker. He was running a slaughterhouse. We found Kemi in a room at the back of the warehouse. He was still tied to the chair, but he was alive, conscious. When he saw us, his eyes went wide with disbelief. "Madam, how you find me?" "Long story," I said, cutting his ropes with a knife Sergeant Damilola had given me. "Can you walk?" "Yes, Ma, but madam, there are other children here. We can't leave them." "Kemi, we came here for you. We can't save everyone." "Then we no different from them." The boy was right, and we all knew it. But saving 1 child was hard enough. Saving 20 was impossible. That's when we heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Tunde's voice, "Check on the boy. Make sure he's still breathing." We had maybe 30 seconds before they found us. "Window," Ngozi whispered, pointing to a high window with bars. "Only way out." Sergeant Damilola was already working on the bars with some kind of tool, but they were thick and he was making noise. The footsteps were getting closer. 15 seconds, Corporal Femi said, listening at the door. 10 seconds. 5. The door opened. What happened next was over in less than a minute, but it felt like forever. Gunfire, shouting. The sound of breaking glass as Sergeant Damilola finally got the window open. Inspector Adamu went down first, blood spreading across his shirt. Corporal Femi returned fire, giving us cover. Ngozi grabbed Kemi and shoved him toward the window. "Go, now!" I was halfway through the window when I heard Tunde's voice behind us. "The rich lady, don't let her escape." A bullet shattered the window frame next to my head. We ran, through the warehouse district, through streets I didn't recognize, past buildings that looked like they were falling down. Ngozi knew where she was going, but I was completely lost. Behind us, we could hear cars starting, men shouting, the sound of pursuit. "This way," Ngozi said, pulling us into an alley that was so narrow we had to turn sideways. We came out behind a church, St. Michael's Catholic Church, according to the sign. The doors were locked, but Ngozi knew where the key was hidden. "Father Dominic owes me a favor," she said. Inside, in the darkness of that church, we finally stopped running. Kemi collapsed into a pew, shaking. Sergeant Damalola was checking a wound on his arm. Corporal Femi was on his phone, talking in rapid Yoruba. "Inspector Adamu?" I asked. Ngozi shook her head. "He didn't make it. A good man was dead because of me, because I decided to play hero instead of calling the police." "This is my fault," I said. "No," Kemi said firmly. "This is Tunda's fault, all of it." "The boy is right," Ngozi said. "Adamu knew the risks. We all did." But that didn't make me feel any better. Corporal Femi finished his phone call. "Good news and bad news," he said. "Good news is we got backup coming. Bad news is Tundi's people are all over the city looking for us." "What about the other children in the warehouse?" "Anonymous tip to the right people. Maybe they get there in time, maybe they don't." I thought about those children we'd left behind, the ones in cages, the ones who wouldn't get rescued by rich women with private security and old police connections. "We need to finish this," I said. "Finish what?" Ngozi asked. "All of it, the whole network, Tunda, his bosses, everyone." "Madam, with respect, you don't know what you're talking about," Sergeant Damalola said. "These people have connections everywhere, police, government, military. You can't fight that kind of power." "Maybe I can't," I said, "but maybe we can." Outside, dawn was breaking over Lagos. Somewhere in this city, Tundi was planning his next move. Somewhere, powerful people were deciding whether 3 children and a rich woman were worth the trouble. And somewhere, in a hospital across town, 2 babies were sleeping peacefully, not knowing that their whole world was about to change again. I looked around that church, at Ngozi, who'd spent 15 years searching for her daughter, at Kemi, who'd risked everything for 2 babies who weren't even his blood, at 2 men who'd walked into hell because it was the right thing to do. "We're going to need a better plan," I said. The better plan came from an unexpected source. Father Dominic, the priest whose church had become our sanctuary, turned out to be more than just a man of God. He'd been documenting child trafficking in Lagos for years, keeping records that the police ignored and the government pretended didn't exist. "I have names," he said, spreading files across his desk. "Dates, locations, bank transfers, everything." "Why haven't you gone to the authorities?" I asked. Father Dominic gave me a look that was part pity, part exhaustion. "My dear, half these names are the authorities." The files made for ugly reading. Tundi wasn't the boss. He was middle management. Above him was a man named Chinedo Okwu, who ran the entire Lagos operation. Above Chinedo were politicians, judges, police commissioners, people whose names I recognized from charity galas and business dinners. "This goes all the way to the top," Ngozi said, studying the documents. "Which is why normal channels don't work," Father Dominic replied. "But sometimes God provides other solutions." His solution was a woman named Chioma Nwankwo, an investigative journalist who'd been trying to break this story for 3 years. She'd been threatened, her sources had been killed, but she kept digging. "She's been waiting for someone with resources and connections," Father Dominic explained. "Someone like you." We met Chioma at dawn in a safe house in Surulere. She was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with the kind of intense energy that comes from carrying too many secrets. "I know about Tunda," she said immediately. "I know about the warehouse, and I know they're going to kill all of you if we don't move fast." "What do you need from us?" "Evidence, testimony, and most importantly, protection for my witnesses." That's when I understood why Father Dominic had brought us together. Chioma had witnesses, former victims, escaped children, adults who'd seen too much and survived to tell about it. But they needed somewhere safe to hide while she put together her story. "How many witnesses?" I asked. 12, including 3 children who escaped from the warehouse last month. 12 people. I could protect 12 people. My compound was large, secure, and I had the resources to keep them fed and hidden. "Done," I said, "but I have conditions." "What conditions?" "We don't wait for your story to publish. We end this now." Chioma frowned. "How?" That's where Ngozi's police experience became invaluable. She knew the system, knew its weaknesses, knew exactly how to make it work for us, instead of against us. "We don't trust the Lagos police," she said. "But there are federal agencies that don't answer to the same bosses. Anti-trafficking units that actually want to stop this. You know people in the federal system?" "I know one person, someone who owes me a very big favor." The person was Commander Sarah Ogbonna, head of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. Ngozi had saved her life during a raid 15 years ago, back when they were both still fighting the good fight from inside the system. "She clean," Ngozi assured me. "If anyone can help us, it's her." But first, we had to survive the next 24 hours. Tundi wasn't giving up. Word on the street was that he'd put a bounty on all of us. 5 million naira for me, dead or alive. 2 million for Ngozi, 1 million for Kemi. "We're trapped in this church," Sergeant Damalola pointed out. "We can't stay here forever." "We don't need forever," I said. "We just need long enough." Long enough for what? I wasn't entirely sure, but I was starting to have an idea. My phone had been buzzing all morning with calls from my lawyer, Obinna. I'd been ignoring them, but finally I picked up. "Aduni, where are you? The police are looking for you. There are rumors." "What kind of rumors?" "That you're involved in some kind of vigilante operation, that you killed a police officer, that you're harboring fugitives." So Tundi's people were already spinning the story. By tonight, I'd be the villain in this whole mess. "Obinna, I need you to do something for me." "I don't think I should be." "I'm your client. Do your job." There was a pause. "What do you need?" "I need you to set up a meeting with Chinedu Okwu." "The businessman? Why?" "Tell him I want to make a deal. Tell him I have something he wants." "What do you have?" "The twins, and evidence that could destroy his entire operation." Obinna was quiet for a long moment. "Aduni, you're playing a very dangerous game." "I'm not playing anything. This is war." The meeting was set for that evening at a restaurant in Victoria Island. Neutral ground, public place, witnesses everywhere. Chinedu thought he was meeting a scared rich woman who wanted to negotiate her way out of trouble. He had no idea what was coming. "You sure about this?" Kemi asked as we prepared to leave the church. "No," I said honestly, "but it's the only play we have." "What if it goes wrong?" I looked at this brave boy who'd risked everything for 2 babies, who'd endured torture and terror and still worried about others more than himself. "Then we make sure the twins are safe, no matter what happens to us." As the sun set over Lagos, we made our way across the city. Not together. That would have been suicide, but moving toward the same destination, carrying the same hope, ready to risk everything for children who couldn't protect themselves. I thought about Inspector Adamu, who died in that warehouse, about the children we'd left behind, about all the victims who'd never get justice because the people who were supposed to protect them were the ones hurting them. Tonight, that was going to change. Or we were all going to die trying. The restaurant was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive, discreet, the kind of place where powerful people made deals that never appeared in any official records. Chinedu was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 bodyguards trying to look like businessmen. He was smaller than I'd imagined, older, maybe 60, with the kind of soft face that came from a lifetime of other people doing his dirty work. "Mrs. Olaran Sogo," he said as I sat down, "you've caused me considerable trouble." "The night is young," I replied. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I understand you have a proposition." "I do, but first I want you to understand something." "What's that?" "This conversation is being recorded, and if anything happens to me, those recordings go to people who will make your life very unpleasant." His smile faltered slightly. "You're making threats?" "I'm making promises." That's when Chinedu realized he wasn't dealing with a scared rich woman anymore. He was dealing with someone who had nothing left to lose. "Here's what's going to happen," I told Chinedu, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was hammering. "You're going to shut down your operation, all of it, the warehouses, the trafficking routes, the organ harvesting, everything." He laughed, actually laughed. "And why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, by tomorrow morning every major news outlet in West Africa will have detailed evidence of what you've been doing. Names, dates, financial records, photographs, everything." "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo that Kioma had sent me an hour earlier. It was from inside the warehouse we'd raided, children in cages, medical equipment, documents with his signature. His face went pale. That warehouse was supposed to be destroyed, he said quietly. Funny thing about evidence, it has a way of surviving. Chinedo leaned back in his chair, studying me with new respect. What do you want? I want those children released, all of them. I want your operation dismantled, and I want Tunda to disappear. Disappear? However you handle your personnel problems is your business, but he threatened my family. That stops now. And in return? In return, you get to walk away from this, retire, move to another country, live quietly, because the alternative is spending the rest of your life in prison. You think you can threaten me? His voice was getting louder, attracting attention from other diners. I'm not threatening you. I'm offering you a choice. That's when he made his mistake. He signaled to his bodyguards. What Chinedo didn't know was that Sergeant Damilola and Corporal Femi were sitting at tables nearby, looking like regular customers. What he also didn't know was that Commander Sarah Ogbonna had federal agents positioned outside the restaurant. Mr. Okwu, a voice said behind him, I think you'll want to reconsider. He turned around to see a woman in a dark suit holding up a federal badge. Commander Ogbonna, flanked by 2 agents. This is a private conversation, Chinedo said. This is a federal investigation, she replied, and you're under arrest. The next few minutes were chaos. Chinedo's bodyguards tried to run, but they didn't get far. Other diners were scrambling for exits. Restaurant staff were calling police who were already on their way. But it wasn't over yet. As the federal agents were reading Chinedo his rights, my phone rang. Tunde. You think you smart, rich lady. His voice was full of rage. You think you win? I think it's over, Tunde. It not over. I still got friends, I still got connections, and I still know where those babies sleep at night. My blood turned to ice. What are you talking about? Lagos General Hospital, room 314. 2 little boys who gonna have accident tonight unless you call off your federal friends. He was threatening Taiwo and Kihinde. You son of a... 1 hour, he said. Call off the investigation or those babies die. The line went dead. I looked at Commander Ogbonna, who had heard enough of the conversation to understand what was happening. He's going after the twins, I said. We have people at the hospital. Tunde has been running this operation for years. He knows how to get past security. That's when Kemi appeared at my elbow. He'd been watching from across the restaurant, and he'd heard everything. We have to go, he said simply. Now. The drive to Lagos General was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Commander Ogbonna had called ahead, but hospital security was notoriously unreliable. Too many people had access, too many ways to get in and out. When we arrived, the hospital was in chaos. Someone had pulled the fire alarm. People were evacuating. In the confusion, anyone could slip inside. Room 314, I said, running toward the elevator. The elevators are shut down because of the fire alarm, a security guard told us. Stairs. 7 flights of stairs and heels and a dress that wasn't made for running. By the time we reached the 7th floor, I was gasping for air, but the pediatric ward was eerily quiet. Too quiet. The nurse's station was empty. The hallways were dark. Like something's wrong, Ngozi said. We found Dr. Adebayo in room 314, unconscious on the floor. The twins' beds were empty. They took them, Kemi said, his voice breaking. We too late. But then I heard something. Crying, very faint, coming from somewhere nearby. The supply closet, Ngozi said. We found them there. Taiwo and Kehinde hidden in a storage closet by a nurse who'd seen men with guns coming down the hallway. The nurse, a young woman named Blessing, was crouched over them, shaking with fear. They were looking for babies, she whispered. I heard them talking, so I hid these ones. Where did they go? Commander Ogbonna asked. Maternity ward. They took 2 newborns instead. My heart sank. 2 other babies, probably just hours old, were now in Tunda's hands because we'd saved Taiwo and Kehinde. We have to find them, I said. We will, Commander Ogbonna promised. But first, we get these children to safety. As we prepared to leave the hospital, Kemi held the twins close to his chest, the same way he'd protected them in the rain that first night. But this time, something was different. This time, he wasn't alone. Thank you, he said to me as we walked toward the elevator. For what? For not giving up, for not leaving us. I looked at this remarkable boy who'd become the center of my world in just a few days, who'd taught me that family wasn't about blood or law or money. It was about showing up when it mattered. Thank you, I said back, for teaching me what courage looks like. Outside, dawn was breaking over Lagos again. Somewhere in the city, federal agents were rounding up the rest of Chinito's network. Somewhere, journalists were preparing stories that would change everything. And somewhere, Tundi was making his last desperate moves. But as I watched Kemi gently rocking Taiwo while Kehinda slept in Ngozi's arms, I realized something important. We'd already won the only battle that really mattered. We'd kept our promise to protect these children. Everything else was just details. But the details, as it turned out, were about to become very interesting indeed. 3 weeks later, I was standing in my living room watching Kemi teach Taiwo how to clap his hands. The baby was giggling, actually giggling, and the sound filled my house in a way I never knew it needed to be filled. Kahindi was sleeping in Ngozi's arms. My housekeeper, my friend, had officially become their grandmother, and watching her with those babies was like watching someone come back to life. The paperwork came through, my new lawyer said. Not Obina, he'd disappeared the day after Chineto's arrest, probably on a plane to somewhere without extradition treaties. My new lawyer was a woman named Funmi Adebayo, Dr. Adebayo's sister, who specialized in adoption and child welfare cases. What does that mean? I asked. It means they're legally yours, all 3 of them. Legally mine, the word should have terrified me. A few weeks ago, I was a single businesswoman with no interest in children. Now, I was a mother of 3. But looking at Kemi, who'd started calling me Mama Aduni when he thought I wasn't listening, I realized terrified wasn't what I felt. Grateful, that's what I felt. The whole network had crumbled faster than anyone expected. Once Chineto started talking, and he talked a lot, hoping to reduce his sentence, the arrests came in waves. Politicians, judges, police officers, doctors. People I'd known for years turned out to be monsters. Tunda never made it to trial. They found his body in Lagos Harbor 2 days after the hospital incident. The official cause of death was drowning, but everyone knew Chineto's people had silenced him before he could implicate anyone else. I should have felt sorry for him, but I didn't. What happened to the other children? I asked Funmi. The ones from the warehouses? Most of them are in safe homes now. Some are being reunited with families. A few... She paused. A few didn't make it. We observed a moment of silence for the children we couldn't save. Then Kemi looked up from playing with Taiwo. Mama Aduni, can I ask you something? Of course. Why you help us? You could have just driven past that day. It was a question I'd asked myself 100 times. Why had I stopped? What made 3 strangers worth upending my entire life? You know what? I said. I used to think success was about building something big, making money, gaining power, being important. And now, I looked around my living room, Kemi on the floor with the twins, Ngozi humming lullabies in Yoruba, toys scattered everywhere, baby bottles drying in the kitchen, the controlled chaos of a real family. Now, I think success is about showing up when someone needs you. Chioma's articles had won international awards. The story had sparked investigations in 12 countries, led to policy changes, saved hundreds of children. But none of that mattered as much as the sound of Kehindi's first laugh, or the way Kemi's face lit up when he learned he could go to school, or the way Ngozi cried when she realized her daughter's children would grow up knowing they were loved. Mama Aduni, Kemi said, using that name he pretended he didn't use. Yes? Thank you. For what this time? For everything. For stopping in the rain, for not giving up, for making us a family. 6 months later, I was sitting in that same living room, but everything was different. The twins were walking now, stumbling around in that adorable way babies do, getting into everything, making messes I never would have tolerated before. Kemi was in his school uniform, getting ready for his first day at Corona School in Victoria Island. He'd tested into the accelerated program, despite missing years of education. Turns out, protecting 2 babies while living on the streets teaches you things regular school doesn't. Ngozi had officially become the twins' grandmother and my head of security. She'd taken courses, gotten licensed, built a network of former police officers who specialized in protecting families like ours. Families who'd made enemies of dangerous people. You ready for this? I asked Kemi as he adjusted his tie. I think so. What if the other kids don't like me? What if they do? He grinned, that smile that had gotten me through the darkest moments of our ordeal. Then I guess I'll have to learn how to be a regular kid. You'll never be regular, Kemi. You're extraordinary, but maybe now you can be extraordinary and safe. After he left for school, I sat with the twins while they ate breakfast. Taiwo threw cereal at me. Kehinda knocked over his juice cup. 6 months ago, I would have been horrified. Now I just laughed. My phone rang. Commander Ogbonna. Aduni, I have news. Good news or bad news? Good news. We got the last of them. The entire network is finished. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Complete safety. For the first time since that rainy day when I'd seen a boy protecting 2 babies, I knew we were truly free. Thank you, I said. Thank you. Your willingness to risk everything made all the difference. After she hung up, I sat in the quiet of my house. The twins were napping. Ngozi was in the kitchen preparing lunch. Outside, Lagos was its usual chaotic self. Traffic, noise, millions of people trying to make their way in an unforgiving city. But inside my house, there was peace. A year ago, if someone had told me I'd give up my quiet, controlled life to become a mother to 3 children, I'd have laughed. If they'd told me I'd risk my life to fight child traffickers, I'd have thought they were crazy. But sitting there, listening to the sounds of my family, I realized something important. This wasn't the life I'd planned. It was the life I was meant to live. And when Kemi came home that afternoon, excited about his new friends and his teachers and all the things he was going to learn, when the twins woke up from their naps and reached for me with those chubby little hands, when Ngozi smiled at me across the dinner table, like I was the daughter she'd never had, I knew something else. Sometimes the best thing you can do is stop your car in the rain. Sometimes the most important decision you'll ever make happens in a single moment, when you choose to care about someone else more than you care about yourself. And sometimes, just sometimes, that choice changes everything. Not just for them, for you too. My name is Aduni Olorin Sogo. I used to be a businesswoman who thought success was measured in money and power. Now, I'm a mother who knows that success is measured in the laughter of children who are safe, loved, and free. And if you ever find yourself driving through the rain and you see someone who needs help, stop the car. Trust me on this one. It might just change your life.